Millionaire fainted after seeing a poor girl with a picture of his late wife. She's my mommy. Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the journey. The Chicago rain hammered against the windshield of William Harrison's black Mercedes as his driver navigated through the storm-darkened streets. At 45, William had built Harrison Industries into a Fortune 500 empire, transforming himself from a heartbroken university graduate into one of America's most ruthless businessmen. "Sir, there's a problem with the engine," James announced apologetically as the luxury vehicle sputtered before dying completely. William glanced up from his tablet, where acquisition reports had consumed his attention. "Where are we?" "Arts District. Sir, near the Riverside Gallery." William checked his platinum watch. The board meeting wasn't for 2 hours, but he despised delays almost as much as he despised weakness. "I'll wait inside that building while you handle this," he said, nodding toward a small gallery across the street. The rain soaked through his Italian suit immediately. Inside the gallery, soft lighting illuminated local artwork, but William's attention was drawn to a small figure in the corner. A little girl, perhaps 6 years old, sat behind a makeshift table displaying children's paintings. Her dark hair fell in gentle waves around her face as she carefully arranged her artwork. "Are these for sale?" William asked, approaching her table. The girl looked up with startling green eyes that seemed far too wise for her age. "Yes, sir. I painted them myself. This one's my favorite." She held up a watercolor of a woman with flowing hair surrounded by butterflies. "Who is this?" William asked, something stirring in his chest. "My mama," the girl whispered. "She's in heaven now, but I paint her so I won't forget." As the girl reached for another painting, she accidentally knocked over her water jar. The precious portrait of her mother absorbed the spilled water, colors bleeding and blurring beyond recognition. "No," she cried, her small hands desperately trying to save the ruined painting. "It's ruined. It was the only one I had of her." William knelt beside her, watching tears stream down her face. Something about this child called to a part of his heart he'd buried years ago. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma," she sobbed. "Emma. Clearwater." The name hit him like a physical blow. Clearwater. Could it be possible? "I'll buy all your paintings," William said suddenly. "Every single one." Emma looked up in shock. "All of them? But sir, they're just children's pictures." "They're beautiful," William assured her, pulling out his wallet. "And talent should be rewarded." As he handed her the money, more than she'd probably seen in months, Emma smiled, a radiant expression that stopped William's breath entirely. That smile, those eyes, the artistic talent. It was Grace Thompson, the love of his life, who had vanished 7 years ago without explanation, leaving him bitter and hollow. "Emma," he said carefully, "would you like me to drive you home?" Emma's face lit up at William's offer. "Yes, please. Aunt Rose will be so excited to meet you. She always says I need to be careful of strangers, but you're not strange. You're kind." 20 minutes later, William found himself climbing 3 flights of worn stairs in a modest apartment building that smelled of cooking spices and old wood. The contrast to his penthouse lifestyle was jarring, yet something about the warmth emanating from behind the faded door marked 3B drew him forward. "Aunt Rose," Emma called, bursting through the door. "I sold all my paintings to this nice man." Rose Clearwater appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a flour-dusted apron. She was perhaps 35, with tired eyes but a gentle smile that immediately reminded William of someone he couldn't quite place. "Emma, what have I told you about talking to strangers?" Rose said softly, though her gaze fixed on William with protective concern. "I'm William Harrison," he introduced himself, noting how Rose's eyes widened with recognition. I was genuinely impressed by Emma's artwork. Rose studied him carefully. "The William Harrison? From Harrison Industries?" "Guilty, as charged." William's usual corporate charm felt awkward in this humble space filled with Emma's drawings covering every wall, handmade quilts, and the scent of homemade bread. "Look what I made yesterday," Emma exclaimed, pulling William toward a makeshift easel. It's our apartment, but I painted it like a castle because Aunt Rose makes everything magical. The painting showed their simple home transformed into a fairy tale dwelling, complete with flower gardens and rainbow bridges. But what struck William was the technique, sophisticated color blending and perspective that seemed impossible for a 6-year-old. Emma has quite a gift, he murmured to Rose. Just like her mother, Rose replied quietly, something sad flickering across her features. Grace was incredibly talented, too. William's heart nearly stopped. Grace was Emma's mother? Yes. My sister. Rose's voice carried years of grief. She died when Emma was born. Emma, oblivious to the tension, continued showing William her artwork. This one's my mama dancing. Aunt Rose says she loved to dance. And this one's the father I dream about sometimes, tall and kind just like you. The child's innocent words hit William like lightning. The father she dreamed about looked remarkably like him, painted with careful detail that spoke of deep longing. Emma, sweetheart, Rose intervened gently. Perhaps Mr. Harrison needs to leave now. But I want to paint him a special picture, Emma protested. Can you come back tomorrow, please? William looked into those familiar green eyes, Grace's eyes, and felt something crack inside his carefully constructed walls. I'd like that very much, Emma. As he prepared to leave, Emma hugged his leg tightly. Thank you for buying my paintings and for not thinking they're silly. Walking back to his repaired Mercedes, William's mind raced. Grace Clearwater. Grace Thompson had been Grace Clearwater. And Emma. His phone buzzed with an angry text from his mother, Victoria. Board meeting started without you. This irresponsibility ends now. But for the first time in 7 years, William Harrison had found something more important than business. The marble-floored conference room at Harrison Industries buzzed with tension as William entered 2 hours late. Victoria Harrison, his 70-year-old mother and company matriarch, sat rigidly at the head of the table, her silver hair perfectly styled and her expression glacial. How nice of you to join us, William, she said, her voice dripping with controlled fury. I trust your emergency was worth losing the Blackstone merger? Marcus Sterling, William's brother-in-law and business partner, leaned forward with barely concealed irritation. The clients flew in from London specifically for this meeting. Where were you? William loosened his tie, still thinking about Emma's innocent laughter and the way she'd hugged his leg. I was handling a personal matter. Personal matter? Victoria's eyebrows arched dangerously. Since when do you have personal matters that supersede billion-dollar deals? Since today, William replied evenly, taking his seat. Marcus exchanged a pointed look with Victoria. William, you've been acting strangely lately. Missing meetings, distracted during calls. Are you having some kind of midlife crisis? I met a remarkable child today, William said, surprising himself with his honesty. A 6-year-old artist named Emma Clearwater. She's incredibly talented. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. A child? Victoria's voice carried disgust. William, please tell me you're not being taken advantage of by some opportunistic family looking for a handout. It's not like that, William protested. But Victoria was already standing, pacing behind her chair like a predator. Let me guess. Poor little orphan with a sob story. Tragic circumstances. And suddenly you're their savior? She laughed coldly. These people are experts at manipulation, William. They target successful men like you, exploit your guilt and loneliness. Marcus nodded approvingly. Your mother's right. You're vulnerable after Grace. These lower-class families know exactly which buttons to push. The mention of Grace's name in such a dismissive context ignited something fierce in William. Don't you dare speak about Grace that way. Grace was 7 years ago, Victoria snapped. It's time you moved on instead of projecting your grief onto every stray child you encounter. Emma isn't a stray, William said quietly, his voice carrying a warning edge that made both Victoria and Marcus pause. And neither was Grace. Victoria's face flushed with anger. Grace Thompson was entirely wrong for this family. Thank God that situation resolved itself before it could damage our reputation permanently. Something in her tone, satisfaction mixed with knowledge, made William's blood run cold. What do you mean, resolved itself? Victoria's expression flickered almost imperceptibly. I mean, she came to her senses and realized she didn't belong in our world. Mother, William said slowly, standing to face her. What did you do? I protected this family, Victoria replied sharply. Just like I'm protecting it now by warning you about this Emma child and her opportunistic guardians. William stared at his mother, pieces of a puzzle beginning to form in his mind. I'm going to see Emma tomorrow and the day after that. And every day I choose to. Then you're a fool, Victoria declared. But don't expect this company to suffer while you play house with some street urchin. As William walked out, leaving the merger documents unsigned, he heard Marcus mutter, We need to handle this situation before it destroys everything we've built. The words followed him to the elevator, carrying an ominous weight that made him think of Grace's sudden disappearance and Emma's green eyes that held secrets she was too young to understand. William returned to Emma's apartment the next evening, carrying bags from the city's finest art supply store. When Emma opened the door, her face transformed with pure joy. You came back. I knew you would. She threw her small arms around his waist with the trusting affection he'd forgotten existed. I brought you something, William said, kneeling to her level. Real artist supplies. Emma's eyes widened as he revealed professional watercolors, silk, brushes, and premium canvas boards. These are for me, but they must cost so much money. Artists deserve proper tools, William replied, touched by her concern about expense. Would you like to paint something together? Rose appeared from the kitchen, observing William's interaction with Emma. The gentleness in his voice, the way he listened intently to Emma's chatter about colors and techniques, seemed to ease her initial wariness. Mr. Harrison, Rose said, softly, this is incredibly generous, but please call me William, and Emma has real talent. With proper instruction, she could be extraordinary. I want to be like Mama, Emma announced, carefully selecting a brush. Aunt Rose says she painted beautiful pictures before I was born. William's heart clenched. Tell me about your mama. Emma's face grew serious with the weight of memories too precious to lose. She had long, dark hair and green eyes like mine. Aunt Rose says she sang while she painted, and she loved butterflies because they're like flying flowers. She sounds wonderful, William murmured, thinking of Grace's laugh, her passion for art, the way she'd traced patterns in the air when describing her latest painting. I dream about having a daddy sometimes, Emma continued innocently, mixing blue and yellow on her palette. In my dreams, he's tall and kind, and he brings me art supplies and helps me paint pictures of Mama. Rose caught William's sharp intake of breath, noticing how his hands trembled slightly as he helped Emma steady her canvas. Emma, sweetheart, Rose intervened gently. Perhaps Mr. William has other things to do. Actually, William said, his voice thick with emotion, I was wondering if you'd allow me to arrange private art lessons for Emma. I know an excellent instructor who works with gifted children. Rose hesitated. William, that's incredibly kind, but we couldn't possibly accept. Please, Aunt Rose, Emma pleaded. I want to learn how to paint like Mama did. William met Rose's eyes over Emma's head. No strings attached. She has a gift that shouldn't be wasted. After a long moment, Rose nodded. If you're certain it's no trouble. That evening, as William prepared to leave, Emma hugged him tightly. Will you come see my first real lesson? I wouldn't miss it, William promised. Walking to his car, he pulled out his phone and called his private investigator. Carson, I need you to find everything you can about Grace Thompson. She may have changed her name to Clearwater. I need to know what happened to her, and I need to know now. Something told him Emma's resemblance to Grace was no coincidence, and if his growing suspicions were correct, everything he thought he knew about his past was about to change forever. 2 weeks into Emma's art lessons, William found himself spending every evening at the modest apartment. Tonight, Emma sat cross-legged on the living room floor, sorting through a small wooden box with reverent care. These are my most precious things, she explained to William, who sat beside her on the worn carpet. Aunt Rose lets me look at them when I miss Mama extra much. Inside the box lay a few pieces of jewelry, some dried flowers, and a single photograph, protected by a plastic sleeve. Emma lifted it carefully as if handling fragile glass. "This is the only picture I have of Mama," she whispered, offering it to William. "Aunt Rose says she was the most beautiful lady in the whole world." William's world tilted off its axis. The photograph showed a young woman with cascading dark hair and luminous green eyes, laughing at something beyond the camera's frame. She wore a simple sundress and held paintbrushes in paint-stained hands. But it was her smile, radiant, uninhibited, full of dreams, that stopped William's heart. Grace Thompson. His Grace. The woman he'd loved desperately at 25, who had vanished from his life without explanation 7 years ago. "Mr. William?" Emma's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." William stared at the photograph, his hands trembling. Grace Clearwater. Grace Thompson had become Grace Clearwater. The timeline crashed through his consciousness like a freight train. Their last night together had been exactly 7 years and 3 months ago. Emma was 6 years old. She's very beautiful," he managed, his voice hoarse. "I wish I could remember her voice," Emma continued innocently. "Aunt Rose tries to tell me stories, but she says I look just like Mama did when she was little. Do you think so?" William studied Emma's face, really looked at her for the first time with this devastating knowledge. The delicate bone structure, the way her eyebrows arched when she was curious, the artistic tilt of her head when concentrating, even her hands, long-fingered and graceful, were Grace's hands in miniature. "Yes," he whispered, "you look exactly like her." Emma beamed at the compliment, then grew thoughtful. "Sometimes I pretend my daddy looks like you. Is that silly?" The innocent words hit William like a physical blow. Emma's father. Grace had been pregnant when she disappeared, pregnant with his child. "Emma," he said carefully, "what do you know about your father?" "Nothing really. Aunt Rose says Mama never talked about him much, just that he was a good man who didn't know about me." Emma's green eyes, Grace's eyes, met his. "Do you think he would have wanted to know me if he could?" William's throat closed completely. "I think," he managed, "any man would be incredibly lucky to have you as his daughter." Rose appeared in the doorway, taking in the scene. William, pale and shaken, clutching Grace's photograph while Emma leaned trustingly against his side. "Emma, time for your bath," Rose said quietly. After Emma bounded away, Rose approached William with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "In a way I have," William replied, still staring at Grace's image. "Rose, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." Rose sat across from him, wariness creeping into her expression. Grace's last name wasn't always Clearwater, was it? Rose's face went ashen. "How did you—" "It was Thompson. Grace Thompson, and Emma's father." William met her eyes directly. "It's me, isn't it?" The Harrison mansion glittered with crystal chandeliers and designer gowns as Chicago's elite gathered for the annual Children's Art Foundation Gala. William adjusted his bow tie nervously, watching Emma descend the grand staircase in a simple, blue dress that Rose had carefully pressed for the occasion. "It's like a real palace," Emma whispered, her eyes wide with wonder as she took in the marble floors and towering oil paintings. "Remember what we discussed?" William said gently, offering her his arm. "You're here as a young artist I'm sponsoring. Show them your talent." Victoria Harrison stood near the champagne fountain, her face a mask of barely controlled horror as she watched her son escort a 6-year-old through the crowd of wealthy philanthropists. "William," she hissed as they approached, "what is the meaning of this spectacle?" "Mother, I'd like you to meet Emma Clearwater, a remarkably gifted young artist." William's voice carried warning. "Emma, this is my mother, Mrs. Harrison." Emma curtsied politely, just as Rose had taught her. Thank you for inviting me to your beautiful home, Mrs. Harrison. Victoria's smile could have frozen champagne. How charming. As they moved through the ballroom, conversations paused and whispers followed. Emma, initially overwhelmed by the opulent surroundings, came alive when guests genuinely admired the small portfolio of paintings William had encouraged her to bring. Extraordinary technique for someone so young, commented Margaret Thornfield, a prominent art dealer. Where did you study, dear? I learned by watching my mama paint, Emma replied proudly. And now Mr. William got me a real teacher. Mr. William? Margaret's eyebrows rose with amusement. He's been like almost a daddy to me, Emma said innocently, slipping her small hand into William's much larger one. The words rippled through nearby conversations like a dropped stone. William felt the weight of scrutinizing stares and barely concealed smirks. Harrison's latest charity case, someone murmured behind crystal glasses. Midlife crisis, obviously. Playing father to feel important. That child is clearly being coached. The aunt probably sees dollar signs. William's jaw tightened, but Emma remained oblivious to the cruel undercurrents, excitedly explaining her painting techniques to anyone who would listen. Marcus Sterling appeared at William's elbow, his expression dark. This is becoming embarrassing, William. People are talking. Let them talk, William replied evenly. Don't be naive. This looks inappropriate. A wealthy man, no family of his own, suddenly obsessed with some random child. The board is already questioning your judgment. Emma tugged at William's sleeve. Mr. William, can I show Mrs. Thornfield my picture of you? She held up a watercolor portrait she'd painted as a surprise. William sitting in their small kitchen, smiling as he helped her with homework. The image radiated warmth and domestic happiness that contrasted sharply with the cold elegance surrounding them. It's beautiful, sweetheart, William said softly, kneeling to her level. You look happy in it, Emma observed. Are you happy when you're with me? Very happy, William confirmed, acutely aware of the shocked silence from nearby guests. Good, Emma announced with 6-year-old certainty. Because you make me happy too, almost, Daddy. Victoria's sharp intake of breath was audible across the room. The whispers grew louder, more pointed. As William drove Emma home later that evening, she chattered excitedly about the beautiful dresses and the people who liked her paintings. Did I do okay? She asked as they pulled up to her building. You were perfect, William assured her, though his mind churned with the evening's implications. Inside his empty mansion later, William stared at Emma's portrait of him. In it, he looked genuinely content for the first time in years. Whatever the cost to his reputation, he realized, this little girl had given him something priceless. Hope. William paced his home office like a caged animal, phone pressed to his ear as private investigator Carson Mitchell delivered his preliminary findings. You were right, Mr. Harrison. Grace Thompson legally changed her name to Grace Clearwater 6 years ago. Shortly after leaving university, William gripped the phone tighter. What else? She worked as an elementary art teacher in Lincoln Park, died during childbirth at Northwestern Memorial. No husband listed on Emma's birth certificate, father's name left blank. Carson paused. But there's more. I found records showing Grace made numerous attempts to contact you during her pregnancy. William's blood ran cold. What kind of attempts? Phone calls to your office logged by your assistant. 17 attempts over 3 months, all marked blocked by security per family instructions. The words hit William like physical blows. Family instructions? There's more. She sent letters to your home address, certified mail, return receipt requested, all signed for by a Victoria Harrison. William sank into his leather chair, the room spinning around him. His mother had intercepted Grace's desperate attempts to reach him. His own family had kept him from knowing about his daughter. Carson, I need you to find everything. Phone records, intercepted letters, any evidence of who gave those blocking instructions. Already on it, sir. But Mr. Harrison, there's something else you should know. I interviewed Grace's former colleagues at the school. They said she was devastated during her pregnancy, convinced the baby's father had abandoned her. She kept saying he was a good man who would want to know if only he could. William's throat constricted. Grace had died believing he'd rejected her and their child. One more thing, Carson continued. Grace's neighbor from that time, elderly woman named Mrs. Kowalski, remembers men in expensive suits visiting Grace's apartment several times. They claimed to be lawyers, warned her against harassment and false paternity claims. She thought it was strange since Grace never mentioned any legal troubles. Find out who those men were, William commanded, his voice deadly quiet. After ending the call, William sat in the darkness of his office, pieces of a horrific puzzle falling into place. His mother's satisfaction when discussing Grace's disappearance, her desperate attempts to discredit Emma, the blocked communications, the intimidation tactics. Victoria had known. She'd known Grace was pregnant with his child, and she'd systematically destroyed any chance for them to be together. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Harrison, Miss Emma is here with her aunt. She says she has something important to show you." William wiped his eyes, trying to compose himself. "Send them up." Emma burst through the door moments later, Rose following apologetically behind. "Mr. William, I made you something special," Emma announced, holding up a painting. It showed two figures, a tall man and a small girl, standing together under a rainbow. At the bottom, in careful 6-year-old lettering, she'd written, "My daddy dreams." "I painted the daddy with your face," Emma explained proudly, "because you're the nicest man I know, and sometimes I pretend you really are my daddy." William knelt and pulled Emma into his arms, overwhelmed by love and rage in equal measure. "Emma, what would you say if I told you that pretending might not be necessary?" Rose stepped forward sharply. "William, what are you saying?" "I'm saying," William replied, meeting Rose's eyes over Emma's head, "that Grace tried very hard to tell me about Emma before she died, and some very bad people made sure I never got those messages." Emma pulled back to look at his face. "Does that mean, are you really my daddy?" "I think I might be, sweetheart. And if I am, I promise you'll never have to pretend again." The manila envelope arrived with William's morning mail, unmarked except for his address typed on a standard label. Inside, he found photographs of himself and Emma from their recent outings, playing in the park, sharing ice cream, Emma hugging his leg outside the art supply store. The accompanying letter, printed on generic office paper, made his stomach turn. "Mr. Harrison, you seem like a decent man being taken advantage of. That woman is training the child to seduce you with affection. Notice how the girl clings to you, calls you daddy, shows you carefully painted pictures designed to manipulate your emotions. This is a calculated scheme to access your wealth. Investigate the aunt's financial situation, you'll find desperation." A concerned observer. William's hands trembled as he studied the photos. Taken from a distance with a telephoto lens, they captured innocent moments but presented them through a sinister filter that made his skin crawl. Meanwhile, across town, Rose answered her phone while Emma practiced her painting techniques. "Miss Clearwater?" The voice was electronically distorted, unrecognizable. "I'm calling to warn you about William Harrison. He's been asking questions about your niece. Very personal questions. Men like him don't help children without wanting something in return." Rose's blood chilled. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows his type. Check his background. Rich men who suddenly become obsessed with little girls. There are patterns. He's isolating you from other support systems, making Emma dependent on him. Classic predatory behavior." The line went dead, leaving Rose staring at her phone in horror. That evening, when William arrived for his usual visit, Rose met him at the door instead of letting him enter. "We need to talk," she said tersely, stepping into the hallway and closing the door behind her. "Of course, is everything all right?" Rose studied his face, searching for deception. "William, I received a call today. Someone suggesting your interest in Emma might not be appropriate." William felt the blood drain from his face. "What?" "Rose, surely you don't believe—" "I don't know what to believe." Rose's voice cracked with anguish. "You appear out of nowhere, shower us with gifts, spend every evening here. Now you're claiming to be Emma's father based on a photograph. How? Do I know this isn't some elaborate manipulation?" "Because I love her." William said desperately. Because she's Grace's daughter. Because I lost 7 years with her that I can never get back. Prove it, Rose challenged. If you're really her father, take a DNA test. From inside the apartment, Emma's voice called out, Aunt Rose, is Mr. William here? I finished the painting. For him. Rose's resolve wavered at the joy in her niece's voice, but she stood firm. Until we have definitive proof, I think it's best if you don't visit for a while. William's world crumbled. Rose, please don't do this. Don't let someone else's lies destroy what we're building. I have to protect her, Rose whispered, tears streaming down her face. She's all I have left of Grace. As Rose disappeared behind the closed door, William heard Emma's confused voice. Where did he go? Didn't he want to see my painting? Standing, alone in the dingy hallway, William pulled out his phone and called Carson. Someone's trying to sabotage my relationship with Emma. I need you to find out who sent anonymous letters to me and who's making threatening calls to Rose Clearwater. On it, sir, but Mr. Harrison, be careful. Whoever's doing this knows your schedule, your movements, they're watching you closely. William looked up at the security camera in the hallway, suddenly aware he might not be the only one monitoring Emma's building. 3 days after Rose had barred William from visiting, Emma stopped eating. She just pushes the food around her plate, Rose explained to Dr. Martinez, the pediatrician, her voice thick with worry. She hasn't painted anything since Tuesday. She just sits by the window waiting. Emma, pale and listless in the examination room, clutched her stuffed rabbit while the doctor checked her vitals. Emma, can you tell me how you're feeling? Dr. Martinez asked gently. Tired, Emma whispered. And my tummy hurts, but not from being hungry, from being scared. What are you scared of, sweetheart? Emma's green eyes filled with tears. That Mr. William doesn't want to be my daddy anymore. That I did something wrong and made him go away. Rose knelt beside the examination table, her heart breaking. Oh, Emma, you didn't do anything wrong. Then, why did he stop coming? Why won't you let me call him? Emma's voice cracked with desperation. Everyone always leaves me. Mama left, and now my almost daddy left too. Dr. Martinez pulled Rose aside. She's showing signs of abandonment trauma and severe anxiety. Children her age don't understand adult conflicts. They blame themselves. If this continues, we may need to consider hospitalization for monitoring. That evening, William sat in his empty mansion, staring at his untouched dinner. His phone rang constantly, board members demanding his attention, business crises requiring decisions. But he couldn't focus on anything except Emma's sad eyes from their last meeting. When his doorbell rang at 9 p.m., he found Rose on his doorstep looking haggard and desperate. She's making herself sick, Rose said without preamble. Emma thinks you abandoned her. She stopped eating, stopped painting, stopped being the happy child she was. William's face crumpled. I've been going crazy not seeing her. Rose, whatever. You were told about me. I know it was lies, Rose interrupted. I found out who's been calling me. The voice distorter wasn't perfect. I recognized the speech patterns. It was a woman, probably educated with a slight East Coast accent. William's expression darkened. My mother. Emma's been asking for you constantly. She painted this before she stopped eating. Rose handed him a watercolor that nearly destroyed him. A little girl standing alone under storm clouds, reaching toward an empty space where another figure should have been. She thinks she did something wrong, Rose continued, tears streaming. She keeps asking if she was too clingy, if she shouldn't have called you daddy, if she scared you away by loving you too much. William clutched the painting. I need to see her. Now. She's been having nightmares. She wakes up crying, convinced everyone she loves will disappear. Rose wiped her eyes. William, if you really are her father, she needs you. And if you're not, she still needs you. You've become her anchor. In the car, William called Carson. I want that DNA test expedited. Whatever it costs, I need results within 24 hours. At the apartment, Emma was curled on the couch in her pajamas, listlessly watching a cartoon she wasn't really seeing. When William walked in, She looked up with such hope and relief that it physically hurt. "Mr. William," she whispered. "You came back?" "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," William said, gathering her in his arms. "I should never have stayed away." Emma clung to him desperately. "I thought I made you not want me anymore. I thought I was too much trouble." "Never," William promised fiercely. "You could never be too much trouble. I love you, Emma, more than anything." For the first time in days, Emma smiled. "Really? Even if I'm not really your daughter?" "Especially then," William assured her. "Because it would mean I chose you and you chose me back." The DNA lab called William at 6 a.m. with results that would change everything forever. "Mr. Harrison, the paternity test results are conclusive. There's a 99.99% probability that you are the biological father of Emma Clearwater." William closed, his eyes overwhelmed by a mixture of vindication and devastating loss. Emma was his daughter. Grace had carried his child, tried desperately to reach him, and died believing he'd abandoned them both. "Thank you," he managed, hanging up before calling Rose immediately. "We need to talk. I have the DNA results." An hour later, Rose sat across from William in his study, Emma safely asleep in the guest room after finally eating a full breakfast. The scientific report lay between them on the mahogany desk. "She's mine," William said simply. "Emma is my daughter." Rose nodded, no surprise in her expression. "I've known from the moment I saw you together. She has your laugh, your stubborn streak, your way of concentrating when she's passionate about something." "Then why didn't you tell me immediately?" Rose's face crumpled with years of suppressed pain. "Because Grace made me promise to protect Emma from your family. She told me everything, William, about your mother's threats, the blocked phone calls, the men who came to intimidate her." William leaned forward. "Tell me everything." "Grace tried calling you 17 times during her pregnancy. Each time she was told you'd instructed security to block her calls. Then the letters started bouncing back marked, 'Refused.' Finally, 2 men in expensive suits showed up at her apartment." Rose's voice shook with remembered fear. "They said you knew about the pregnancy and wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. They threatened legal action if she continued harassing the Harrison family with false paternity claims." William's hands clenched into fists. "My mother." Grace was devastated. She'd loved you so completely, believed you loved her too. When those men suggested she was just another gold digger trying to trap a rich man, it shattered her. Rose wiped her eyes. "She changed her name to Clearwater, our grandmother's maiden name, and tried to disappear. But she kept the baby. She said Emma was part of you, the only part she'd be allowed to keep. During labor, when the complications started," Rose's voice broke. "She made me swear to protect Emma from people who would see her as a threat or an embarrassment. She was terrified your family would try to take Emma away just to control the situation." William stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "Grace died thinking I'd rejected her, rejected our daughter. I'm sorry, William, but you have to understand, after everything Grace endured, I had to be certain you were different from your family." "I am different," William said fiercely, "and I'm going to prove it." He turned to face Rose. "I want to legally adopt Emma. I want her to have my name, my protection, my love, everything Grace would have wanted her to have." "What about your mother, your business partner? They'll try to destroy this." William's expression hardened with determination. "Let them try. They stole 7 years from me and Emma. They caused Grace's death as surely as if they'd pushed her down those hospital stairs. But they won't steal another moment." He picked up his phone. "I'm calling my lawyer. Then I'm going to have a very unpleasant conversation with my mother." Rose watched him, seeing the protective father emerging fully for the first time. "William, there's something else. Grace left letters for Emma to be given to her when she's older. Letters about you, how much she loved you, how she believed you would have wanted to know about Emma if you'd been allowed to." William's eyes filled with tears. "She still loved me even after everything they put her through?" "Until her last breath," Rose confirmed softly. In the guest room, Emma stirred awake, calling out sleepily, "Daddy, are you there?" For the first time, William answered without hesitation, "Yes, sweetheart, Daddy's here." William stormed into the Harrison family mansion without knocking, the DNA report clutched in his fist and 7 years of suppressed rage finally unleashed. Victoria and Marcus sat in the formal living room, discussing quarterly projections over brandy. "William," Victoria began smoothly, "how unexpected, we were just... enough." His voice cut through the air like a blade. "I know everything." Victoria's composure flickered slightly, but she maintained her regal bearing. "I'm afraid I don't understand." William threw the DNA report onto the coffee table. "Emma Clearwater is my daughter. Grace Thompson was pregnant with my child when she disappeared 7 years ago." Marcus shifted uncomfortably, but Victoria merely raised an eyebrow. "That's quite a leap, dear. One photograph hardly constitutes 17 blocked phone calls," William interrupted, advancing toward her. "Intercepted letters, threats from hired intimidators. Shall I continue?" The color drained from Victoria's face, but she lifted her chin defiantly. "I don't know what you think you've discovered. I have phone records, Mother, email trails, bank transfers to the security firm you hired to threaten a pregnant woman." William's voice shook with barely controlled fury. "Grace died believing I'd abandoned her and our daughter because of your interference." Victoria stood abruptly, her mask finally slipping. "That girl was completely wrong for this family. A nobody from nowhere, trying to trap you with a pregnancy." "She loved me," William roared, "and I loved her." "Love," Victoria spat. "What did you know about love at 25? She would have destroyed everything we built, dragged the Harrison name through tabloid mud with her common background." Marcus cleared his throat nervously. "William, you have to understand, we were protecting the family legacy." "Protecting your inheritance, you mean?" William snarled, rounding on his brother-in-law. "An unexpected grandchild would have complicated your financial stake in the company." "That's not..." Marcus began, but William cut him off. "You let Grace die in despair, believing the man she loved had rejected her and their child. You stole 6 years of my daughter's life from me. 6 years of birthdays, first words, first steps, gone forever because of your greed and snobbery." Victoria's face twisted with a mixture of defiance and desperation. "She wasn't one of us, William. Her family had nothing, we're nothing. That child would have been a constant reminder of your poor judgment. That child," William said with deadly quiet, "is the most precious thing in my world, and she's my daughter whether you accept it or not." "If you pursue this ridiculous fantasy," Victoria threatened, "I'll make sure the board removes you from the company entirely. You're clearly having some sort of breakdown." William laughed bitterly. "Go ahead. Try to destroy me like you destroyed Grace, but this time I'll fight back." He pulled out his phone and began dialing. "Security? This is William Harrison. I need you to remove 2 people from my property immediately. They're no longer welcome here." Victoria gasped. "You can't throw out your own mother." "Watch me." William's eyes were cold steel. "And Mother, consider this notice. You and Marcus are terminated from all positions at Harrison Industries, effective immediately. Your severance packages will be minimal, just enough to avoid legal complications." "The board will never support this," Marcus protested as security guards appeared in the doorway. "The board will support whatever decision controls 51% of company stock," William replied, "which, fortunately for me, I do." As Victoria was escorted toward the door, she turned back with venom in her voice. "That little girl will never truly be one of us, William. Breeding shows." "You're right," William agreed. "Thank God. She'll be better than us." After they were gone, William stood alone in the mansion that had never truly felt like home, surrounded by priceless art and empty memories. His phone buzzed with a text from Rose. "Emma's asking when you're coming home." Home. For the first time in his life, William knew exactly where that was. The emergency board meeting at Harrison Industries buzzed with tension as William entered the glass-walled conference room. News of Victoria and Marcus's termination had already leaked, sending company stock into volatile swings. William, board member Robert Sterling began. We need immediate clarification about the leadership changes and your personal situation. William stood at the head of the table where he'd made countless million-dollar decisions, but today felt different. I'm resigning from all executive positions, effective immediately. Stunned silence filled the room. Furthermore, William continued, I'm transferring operational control to Harrison and Associates Management Group. They'll oversee the company while I focus on more important priorities. Are you having a mental breakdown? Board member Patricia Wells demanded. You can't just abandon a Fortune 500 company. I'm not abandoning it. I'm choosing my daughter over corporate obligations. Margaret Cross leaned forward. The daughter you just discovered? William, be rational. You could hire nannies, maintain your position. You don't understand, William interrupted. For 6 years, my daughter grew up believing her father didn't want her. She won't spend another day wondering if business matters more to me than she does. His phone buzzed with a text from Rose. Emma painted you a welcome home daddy sign. She's been working on it all morning. William smiled, the corporate drama around him fading to background noise. The Harrison family will lose majority control, warned CFO David Murphy. Victoria and Marcus still hold substantial shares. They could form coalitions, force hostile takeovers. Let them try, William replied calmly. I'd rather lose every penny than sacrifice one more moment with Emma. He pulled out his briefcase and removed several bound contracts, merger agreements, acquisition deals, partnerships that had defined his identity for 20 years. These represented everything I thought mattered, he announced, striking a match. William, stop! Patricia gasped as flames consumed millions in potential profits. Some things are more valuable than money, William declared, watching his old life literally turn to ash. Emma is worth more than this entire empire. The board members stared in shock as William walked toward the door. The management group has my full authority. If you can't accept that, feel free to sell your shares. Later that afternoon, financial news networks exploded with the story. Harrison Industries CEO abandons billion-dollar empire for newly discovered daughter. William watched the coverage from Emma's living room. His daughter curled against his side as she colored in a princess book. Daddy, the TV people are talking about you, Emma observed, glancing up at the screen. They are. They think I made a bad decision. Emma considered this seriously. Did you? William looked around the modest apartment. Rose humming in the kitchen, Emma's artwork covering the walls, the warmth of genuine family filling every corner. No, sweetheart. I made the best decision of my life. Emma beamed and returned to her coloring. Good. I was worried you might want your old life back. Never, William promised, kissing the top of her head. This is exactly where I belong. His phone rang incessantly with calls from reporters, business partners, and shocked colleagues. William turned it off and helped Emma choose colors for her next masterpiece. The financial world could rebuild itself. But childhood moments? Those were irreplaceable. That evening, as he tucked Emma into bed in the small room that felt more like home than his mansion ever had, she whispered, Daddy, are we poor now? No, baby. We're rich in all the ways that matter. 3 months after William's dramatic resignation, the Harrison family scandal dominated Chicago headlines. Carson Mitchell's investigation had uncovered a paper trail of Victoria and Marcus's interference that shocked even seasoned legal professionals. Former Harrison Industries matriarch faces federal investigation for wire fraud and intimidation, read the Tribune's front page. William sat in his lawyer's office, reviewing the criminal charges filed against his mother and brother-in-law. 17 counts of interference with interstate communications, 3 counts of criminal threat, 2 counts of conspiracy to defraud, Attorney Sarah Chen summarized. The evidence is overwhelming. What about the civil case? William asked. Grace's estate, represented by Rose as administrator, is seeking damages for emotional distress, lost financial support, and wrongful interference. The settlement will likely reach 8 figures. Meanwhile, Victoria Harrison had become a pariah in Chicago society. Country club memberships revoked, charity board positions rescinded, invitations to social events mysteriously disappearing. The woman who had once ruled the city's elite now lived in forced seclusion, her reputation irreparably destroyed. Marcus faced even worse consequences. Criminal charges for threatening a pregnant woman carried potential prison time. His wife had filed for divorce, seeking to distance herself from the scandal. Harrison Industries Board had voted unanimously to pursue all legal remedies against him. "Daddy, is the mean lady going to jail?" Emma asked that evening, as William helped her with homework in their new home, a modest but warm house in Lincoln Park, walking distance from her school. "She might," William replied honestly. "What she did was very wrong." "Good," Emma said with 6-year-old certainty. "She was mean to my mama." William had sold the Harrison mansion within weeks of the confrontation, unable to bear the memories of a childhood dominated by Victoria's cold ambition. Their new home featured Emma's artwork prominently displayed, a cheerful kitchen where they cooked together, and a garden where she could paint outdoors. Rose had officially moved in as Emma's guardian and William's trusted family advisor. The legal adoption papers sat framed in the living room beside Emma's latest masterpiece, a family portrait showing the 3 of them under a rainbow. The trust fund is established, William's financial advisor had reported earlier that week. Emma's education, medical care, and future are completely secured regardless of any business fluctuations. Rose had initially protested the substantial financial support William insisted on providing her. "You saved Emma," he'd replied simply. "You kept Grace's memory alive when I couldn't. This family owes you everything." That evening, as they shared dinner around their small kitchen table, Emma made an announcement. "I want to change my name to Emma Harrison Clearwater." "Why both names?" William asked, touched by her inclusion of Grace's chosen surname. "Because I'm proud to be your daughter, but I want to keep Mama's name too. And Aunt Rose's name. We're all family now." William looked around their cozy home, worlds apart from the cold mansion where he'd grown up, and felt profound gratitude for the woman whose love had led him here. "That sounds perfect, sweetheart." Later, after Emma was asleep, William and Rose sat on the front porch, watching fireflies dance in their small garden. "Do you think Grace would approve?" William asked quietly. Rose smiled, touching the locket she wore with Grace's photo inside. "She'd be amazed. You're nothing like the man Victoria tried to convince her you were." "I'm trying to be the father Emma deserves, the man Grace believed I could be." "You already are," Rose assured him. In the distance, sirens wailed toward some unknown emergency, but their small haven remained peaceful. For the first time in his adult life, William Harrison had everything that truly mattered: love, family, and the chance to honor Grace's memory by protecting the daughter they'd created together. 6 months later, William Harrison had mastered the art of French braiding. "Hold still, sweetheart," he murmured, carefully weaving Emma's dark hair while she sat cross-legged on their kitchen counter, swinging her legs impatiently. "Mrs. Garcia says parents who braid hair are special," Emma announced, referring to her 2nd-grade teacher. "Tommy's dad can't even tie shoes properly." William smiled, securing the braid with a butterfly hair tie, one of dozens that now decorated their home surfaces. "There, perfect for your art presentation today." Emma had returned to painting with renewed passion, but her subjects had evolved. Where once she'd painted memories of Grace or fantasies of finding her father, now she created vibrant scenes of their daily life. William teaching her to ride a bike, the 3 of them, William, Emma, and Rose, planting vegetables in their garden, family movie nights on their second-hand sofa. "Look, Daddy," Emma said, showing him her latest creation. "It's us making pancakes on Sunday." The painting captured William in casual clothes, flour in his hair, laughing as Emma stood on a step stool beside him. The joy radiating from the canvas still amazed him. This life he'd stumbled into was fuller than any corporate achievement. "It's beautiful. Should we hang it next to the others?" Their refrigerator had become a gallery of Emma's work. replacing the stark minimalism of his former mansion. Parent-teacher conferences, soccer practice, bedtime stories, and scraped-knee emergencies now filled his calendar, instead of board meetings and acquisition deals. Rose visited every Tuesday for family dinner, a tradition that honored Grace's memory while celebrating their new beginning. She'd brought photo albums from Grace's college years, helping Emma understand her mother's artistic journey and free spirit. "Mama painted flowers like I do," Emma observed, studying Grace's early work. "But she made them dance." "Just like you," William replied, watching Emma absorb these connections to the mother she'd never known. That evening, as he tucked Emma into bed, she made an observation that stopped his heart. "Daddy, I think Mama sent you to find me." "Why do you think that?" "Because you came on the day I was saddest about my ruined painting of her, and you fixed everything." Emma's green eyes, Grace's eyes, sparkled with certainty. "She wanted me to have a daddy who loves art like she did." William kissed her forehead, overwhelmed by the simple wisdom of a 7-year-old. "I think you might be right. Will you tell me about when you loved Mama?" They'd developed this ritual, William sharing carefully chosen memories of Grace while Emma drifted to sleep. Tonight he told her about Grace's laugh, how it filled entire rooms with warmth, and how Emma had inherited that same magical ability to brighten any space. After Emma was asleep, William stood in their living room, surrounded by evidence of the life they'd built together. Rose had helped him frame some of Grace's college paintings, creating a memorial wall that celebrated her artistic legacy while avoiding overwhelming sadness. His phone rang. The management company with updates about Harrison Industries continued. Success under independent leadership. The business was thriving without his obsessive control, proving that some distances created space for better things to grow. "Mr. Harrison," his assistant reported, "the board sends quarterly updates. The company's performing beyond projections." "Good," William replied, but his attention was already shifting to Emma's backpack, where tomorrow's homework waited for their evening routine. 6 months ago, such divided attention would have been unthinkable. Now, William understood that being present for one small girl's daily needs was the most important work of his life. The autumn sun streamed through the windows of the Grace Clearwater Institute for Young Artists as Emma Harrison Clearwater, now 7 years old, stood beside her father before a gathering of supporters, art teachers, and scholarship recipients. "Today, we honor my mama's memory," Emma announced into the microphone, her voice clear and confident, "and help other kids like me who love to paint but need someone to believe in them." William watched proudly as his daughter, once a lonely child selling paintings in a gallery, addressed the audience with poise that reminded him achingly of Grace. The institute, funded entirely by William's personal wealth, would provide art, scholarships, and mentorship for underprivileged children throughout Chicago. "And now," Emma continued, "I want to show everyone my special painting." She unveiled a canvas that made the audience gasp. The painting depicted 4 figures standing together in a circle of golden light. William in his current casual clothes, Emma with paint-stained fingers, Rose wearing her warm smile, and Grace, painted from the treasured photograph but somehow alive with movement and joy. "This is my family," Emma explained. "My daddy who found me, my Aunt Rose who saved me, and my mama who watches over us. Love connects us even when someone is in heaven." The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone present. Families formed through choice and devotion rather than convenience or obligation. Grace's presence in the painting felt real, as if her love had indeed orchestrated the miraculous chain of events that brought them together. After the ceremony, as guests toured the Institute's bright studios and exhibition spaces, William knelt beside Emma in their moment of quiet triumph. "Mama would be proud, wouldn't she?" Emma asked, leaning against his shoulder. "Incredibly proud," William confirmed. "You've honored her memory beautifully. Do you think she's happy that you're my daddy now?" William considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. Through Emma, Grace had given him far more than a child. She'd offered redemption, purpose, and the chance to become the man he was meant to be rather than the man Victoria had shaped. I think she's happy that we found each other, he replied. And that love won in the end. Emma nodded solemnly, then brightened with typical 7-year-old resilience. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? Absolutely. What flavor? Chocolate and vanilla swirl, Emma decided. Like families, different but perfect together. As they walked hand in hand toward their car, William reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A broken-down car in a rainstorm, a little girl selling paintings, a photograph that changed everything. Each step had seemed coincidental, but looking back, the path felt inevitable. Grace's love had transcended death to reunite them. Victoria's cruelty had ultimately been defeated. Emma had gained not just a father, but an extended family committed to nurturing her gifts. Daddy, Emma said as they drove home, will you help me paint something for Mama tonight? What did you have in mind? A picture of what heaven looks like. I think it's filled with butterflies and rainbows and art supplies that never run out. William smiled, understanding that Emma's healing was complete. She no longer painted from loss but from hope, not from what was missing but from abundance. That evening, as they worked together on Emma's vision of Grace's eternal happiness, William Harrison realized that sometimes losing everything leads to finding what matters most. Love, family, and second chances painted in the bright colors of a child's limitless imagination.